Assalamu alaikum. This is Amna Gul, lecturer at the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, CAST. Today the lecture is about the course Communication Skills for Media, JMC 232-2, and the fifth lecture is about PowerPoint presentation rules. We'll be covering two rules today. The first, readability, and the second, creativity overload. Readability is actually the quality of a presentation being easy to read or enjoyable. For that matter, we have to be careful about certain characteristics of the presentation that we are creating. The first one being, it is very important to have contrast in PowerPoint presentations. By contrast, I mean that if the presentation has to be displayed in a light room where there is enough light, then we have to be careful that the background of the PowerPoint presentation should be light. However, the text should be dark. The same holds true for printing any presentations on paper. For example, you have white paper and you print black text on it. However, the case does not remain the same if we shift to a dark room. If the PowerPoint presentation has to be projected in a room that has dim light, then the case is that we have to go for a dark background and light text or foreground. One wonders why so? Because the eye is attracted to light. It is owing to this feature that most of the social media platforms are now offering their themes, darker themes, in order to attract the readers or the audience. I've just put up an example that we should never use light on light because it is difficult to read, especially when it is projected on a screen. Secondly, it distracts the readers. Same is the case for darker things. Should never have dark background and dark text, once again for the same reasons. So we need to keep in mind that contrast is quite very important. The next point, font size. When we are drafting PowerPoint presentations on a screen, on a laptop or a PC, one doesn't recognize that, for example, 8 or 10 font size still seems to be readable. Same is the case for the headings. We feel 40 font size would be excellent to make the impact. However, over time, there is certain criteria or certain limitations set that are most appropriate or ideal for PowerPoint presentations. We'll go through those right now. The first being that for the headings, the font size should be between 24 and 36 points, 24 and 36 inclusive. That means for headings, the minimum font size should be 24 points and the maximum should be 36. So the ideal of having 40 or 44 point size for headings is not suitable. It is not recommended. The second, for body of the text or body of the presentation, it is recommended to have the text between 18 to 24 font size. This is easy to read. Over time, there have been researches that recommend these ranges. The third, source notes should be 14 font size. As you can see at the bottom of the slide, I have put up my details and the course details. These are in 14 font size. Nothing, and I mean it, nothing on the PowerPoint should be less than 14 font size, because it gets very difficult to read when it is projected onto a screen, and for that matter, readers either they are distracted or they lose interest. The culture that we are brought up in that highlights capitalization. It is in our early educational system that students learn to capitalize headings and stuff. They carry the same mindset forward when they are drafting their PowerPoint presentations. However, this does not work for PowerPoints because in PowerPoints, capitalization stands for screaming. So we do not want the text to scream at the audience. It gets very hard to read. For that matter, we have to avoid all caps means we are not supposed to capitalize whole word or whole sentence. I've put up this example in all caps so that you understand and you feel the difference in reading the slide. Thus, we are only supposed to capitalize the first word of a bullet point, which is the same thing as the sentence case in MS Word or MS PowerPoints. Text. When you are preparing your presentations, you come across such nice resource materials. There are lovely quotes and sentences and paragraphs that you would love to include in your presentations. However, once again, the system is different for PowerPoints. You are not supposed to have paragraphs or complete sentences in PowerPoints because they distract the reader, as this slide is distracting you. For that matter, you can only have bullets. For that matter, once again, I'm repeating, you can only have bullets in your PowerPoints. Once you have your bullets, now you have to decide how to adjust your bullets. You cannot centralize your bullet points because it gets very hard to read and it is very difficult for the readers to follow. Once again, the case being on the projection. Once it is projected, it gets far more difficult than with tablets and with laptops and with mobile phones that are in your near access. So how can we have the balance? We can have left alignment of the bullet points. It looks neat and it is easier to read even. Okay, now revisiting the rule 1 that we just went through, it was about readability, how to make presentations or PowerPoint presentations easier to read. So the 5 points that we have covered is, number 1, contrast is important. We need to have contrast. If there is a light room, the text has to be dark. If the room in which the presentation has to be projected is dark, is dim lighted, then the text has to be light. The second point, font size. There are certain specifications of font sizes. The highest font size that you can use is 36 and the minimum font size that you can use is 14. And then there is the categorization that for each case, what are the ideal max ranges. Third, capitalization. You can only capitalize the first letter of the first word of a bullet point. Rest, no capitalizations except for obviously the proper nouns that we know through grammar. The fourth being text. Text in PowerPoints is just bullets, nothing else. No sentences, no paragraphs, no long things. Brief, to the point, crisp bullets. Last, balance. Balance is having things left aligned so they look neat and they are easy to follow. Since we read from left to right, that is why we align it towards the left side. We're through with rule 1, readability. Now let's move to rule 2, that is creativity overload. So what can be creativity overload? Actually, when we are designing PowerPoint slides, we come across this thing, hey, I have learned this. Why don't I put so many stuff in there and your slides get very heavy and you have so many slides that you cannot cover in your specified time. Or there are other things, I'll go one by one. So the problem is that if you have too many slides, your audience can either not read it or they cannot keep up with your pace. So the solution is to eliminate all such slides that don't support the presentation. You have to be specific which are the most important points that you want to discuss in your presentation. The second point, too many colors. Yes, one is tempted to use so many colors because there are so many options available. However, this is not a good option because it is hard to follow for the readers and it lacks consistency. So the solution is to use one color scheme and to be consistent with that and even to be content with that. This is your PowerPoint presentations are actually not meant for your aesthetic sense or the display of your creativity. So you have to limit it within certain things so that your PowerPoints look professional. Once again, PowerPoint offers you so many fonts. Let's have Comic Sans, Times New Roman, Arial, and the others. But having too many, for example, people tend to decide that I'll have the footnotes in this font and I'll have the headings in this and the title would be in that font. But once again, it creates problems. It is difficult to read and it is inconsistent. So the solution is to have one font for all the headings and one font for all the bullet points and carry on with that throughout the presentation. Too many transitions. What are transitions? Transitions are when you shift from one slide to another slide, that is called transition. And the same terminology is usually used for animation, that is when different bullet points or different text appears on your screen. For that matter, there's so many options available with PowerPoint that once again one is tempted to use, as I have used, just to show you that one single heading I've used 3 different animation styles. These are once again distracting and inconsistent. If you want to use any transition, have just 2 clear-cut transitions. One is basically for the slides, transition between one slide and the other slide, and the second between main points, so that the whole thing, your presentation, is consistent and is not actually distracting. With PowerPoints, once again, we come across so many options to add visuals in it, and the internet has to offer such a wide variety of interesting visuals. But once again, the visuals are distracting and can be inconsistent. So it is recommended to use only one visual per slide, and the visual should be placed on the left side of the slide. There are many times that students do this thing that they put it on the right side. However, since we read from left to right, so it's better to put the visual on the left side. And if you have any bullet points, they come after the visual, so they are also aligned properly towards the left. If there is too much of animation, audio or video, it can once again be very distracting, and it should only be used if it is supposed to make an impact. If you feel it makes an impact, it is for a special effect, only then animation, audio or video may be used, not as fillers or not to impress someone that I have this video or I can try out this animation. The next is too many words. If there are too many words on your slide, if your PowerPoint is having a lot many words, audience will ignore it. It is once again distracting. So the solution is to go for a 7x7 rule. What is the 7x7 rule? Well, for PowerPoints, the 7x7 rule states that you can have a maximum of 7 bullet points on your screen or on your slide, and each bullet point can have a maximum of 7 words. I'll repeat it again. The 7x7 rule for PowerPoints is to have 7 bullet points, a max of 7 bullet points on a single slide, and each bullet point can have a max of 7 words. So this is the 7x7 rule. If there is too much of anything, there are other options as well. For example, one comes across, why not change the background? For the beginning slides, the background is different, and for the other slides, there's another background, and then we come across another background. So if there is too much of anything, actually the audience will ignore it. They'll be distracted by it, and the presentation will go useless. So the solution is to leave 60 to 70% of the slide blank. Yes, it is recommended to leave 60 to 70% of the slide blank. It seems to be a difficult thing when you want to put in so much of information, but this is what works. So I'll wind it up that you have to be consistent with whatever you are using, and be consistent with it throughout your presentation, be it colors, be it transition, be it font sizes, whatever you are using. And you have to remember that medium is not the message, the information is the message. The PowerPoint that you are drafting is actually the medium for your presentation. The main thing is the information that you as the presenter would be conveying. So the focus should not be on the medium. It is only supposed to enhance your presentation, or it is only supposed to complement your presentation. Your information is the main thing. So do not focus on the creativity. Do not focus on impressing others with your technological skills. Rather, go for a simple and consistent setup. All the very, very best. Thank you.